The key to success on the field and in your backyard is a comprehensive game plan. So if you're building a fence or a deck this year, trust a Turkstra coach to design, quote, or order the right materials for your project. Visit a Turkstra Lumber near you to learn more.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker.
Yes, welcome back for the latest episode of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. Coach, one down against Toronto. Obviously not the score that you wanted, and we're heading into the second matchup of four. But a couple blows after the game here. Braylon Addison, it comes out, of course, that is a huge loss and a tough injury. And a teammate of mine, I just feel so bad for a guy. I have the most respect for Braylon. I mean, he's a heck of a player and is a great teammate. What can you say about him and what that means, losing him moving forward?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. First of all, we're always, I know that what we do is play football, but we're all people first. And I just feel for Braylon and just how hard he's worked and just him. It's mentally draining. It's mentally draining when these types of things happen. Very unfortunate. As far as the blow to our football team, absolutely. It's a big blow. He's a guy that we depended on. He was comfort food of sorts for Dane and for Tommy. Kind of came up with some big catches when you needed them. You kind of knew where you're going to go on some key second downs. And so that's missing. With that being said, we had the game in front of us in Toronto. And while it did deal us a big blow, we still had opportunities to win that football game. And, credit Toronto. They made some defining plays and ultimately came out with the victory.
Yeah. Of course, the game was just chock full of injuries, and some of them were hard. I mean, your staff was out there constantly. We saw you, out on the field, just putting a hand on the shoulder, and some guys really struggling. And then after the game, we learned here now Dane's going to be missing from the lineup. Matt Shiltz is in, at least for this week. What has your conversation been like with Matt Shiltz, and what are you expecting from him?
Well, as always, Luke, we expect Matt to just be Matt. And, people have gotten a glimpse of his tangible skills. I think one of the things that people would appreciate is he's just a natural leader. He prepares. He reminds me a lot of Dane in how Dane supported. There was a myriad of quarterbacks that have been here where he was just always prepared and at the same time managed to be, 99% supportive. And that's something that you see and you feel daily from Matt. And so, while they have different skill sets, Matt is able to make all the throws on the field. He's definitely a mobile guy, but he's also played in some big games. And so there's a reason we went out and got Matt, and we weren't the only suitor for Matt, and I think that just speaks to the way other people viewed him also. And, we were fortunate that he chose us. And, yeah, you just wanted to keep things as spot play, but in the unlikely event something like this happens, we're very fortunate to have Matthew in there. So the expectation is for him to go in there and take care of the football and be himself and not expect him to be anybody else but himself. Yeah,
unfortunate that he has already been an impact in games. I mean, he's not coming off the sidelines for the first time in 10 months or so. And Coach, in a situation like this, you and Tommy, you guys prepare for a game plan here. Is the theory simplifying a game plan when a new guy gets put in this position, or does Matt's experience allow you to remain unchanged and to open up everything that at your disposal?
Well, Luke, from playing that you go in with your staple plays, or whatever that bulk looks like, and then you've got your handful or half a dozen plays that exploit possibly exactly what they're doing, and things like that. And so you have the mentality. And so when it comes to Matt, I think he can absorb the majority of what we may throw at him. But within that, there's also plays that, Dane really preferred to run. And so there are some plays that Matt prefers to run and where he's comfortable. And I think Tommy's done a great job of adding those to the game plan that fits how we want to go after Toronto. But some of this will unveil itself as the game goes on. As you know, there's a game plan, and then there's the game within the game. So they're definitely going to come out with some wrinkles that we haven't seen. That's why it's always important to start with the protection up front. And then you're allowed to make your adjustments based off of what it is that they're doing. So I think part of this game is going to be, there's great that you have your plan or whatever bucket of plays format, but also there's going to be some that he may have to run that he's not completely comfortable. But I don't think that's any different than any other quarterback.
Mm-hmm. To go back to Game 1 against Toronto this past weekend, it was sort of a surprise for us as we got ready for the call to see that Speedy B wasn't going to be in the lineup starting at receiver at least. You know, we did see him throughout the night, but did it surprise you at all, his somewhat limited involvement?
Well, I just kind of looked at it. It might have surprised me a little bit, but as they're getting healthy, they kind of have a way they envision their team, and I'm never, overly critical of anybody else's football team. It's just an observation. What it did bring to, make my antennas go up is that he's going to be one fresh returner. And so that he's a Hall of Fame guy that's back there that is dangerous, and he definitely does affect, when we punt, when we go for long field goals, those type of things, just because he's back there. So I say that, they're leaning on him more in the return game right now, and I think he saw a fair share of reps as a receiver due to how they package things. Mm-hmm. So while he's not starting, I think he's still in a role to impact the football game.
Yeah, and it looks like in this week too, at least for one reason or another that we're not privy to, we'll see him a little bit more. It appears to be at wide receiver, and we'll see how that looks at Tim Hortons Field when 16 comes out in the double blue. It's going to blow me away to lay my eyes on it, but I'm excited for the matchup and to see what Speedy how involved he is. Coach, the defense for your Ticats has had a few incredible game starts in these last few weeks. The first quarter, it was very, very lopsided in Toronto. What's going so right for your defense at the beginning, early on in these games?
Well, I think we're getting off the field. That's it, and I think we've done a decent job of containing the run. Oftentimes they're going to get a first down or two, but then we're able to keep the field. Not letting them flip the field right away. I mean, they have an outstanding punter who's able to flip the field, but I really feel that they've done a great job of getting off the field. And then at the same time, last week, our offense did an outstanding job of keeping their defense on the field and allowing our defense to rest. And that usually proves as a pretty good recipe, not only just for time of possession, but for the defense in general. So I think anytime you're playing great defense, there's usually, adequate offense, and you're doing a decent job on special teams also. Yeah,
they tend to go hand in hand. The best, greatest team sport of all time. Coach,
yes.
We're going to do something a little new here. We're adding in a fan question to each episode of our show here. So, fans, I'll get to this in a second, but you'll be able to email your questions in going forward, and each week we're going to pick one to ask Coach O on the show here. So, first fan question ever on the Coach O show is from Teresa in Grimsby. Ready, Coach?
I'm ready.
Okay. Teresa says, Coach, we have our routines as fans on home game days. Curious to know what your day looks like from start to finish when the Ticats play at home. Thanks, and beat the Argos, Teresa and Tom in Grimsby.
All right. Well, thank you, Teresa. From start to finish. Wow. Well, I think there's a couple things that go into it here, Teresa, and that is it depends on the start of the game. So if we'll go off of this week's game where we're going to kick off at 7:30, and there's a difference between getting up and waking up. So my body's naturally going to wake up the way I would normally, but I'll lay in bed just for a little bit longer, unwind a little bit, and then my routine ever since I was a player was actually to get out and clean the car. So I'm going to wash the car. I'm going to basically detail it. And that's been since I was a player. And kind of the why behind that is just there's so much time. Whether you're on the road or at home, when you play a night game, you might end up at the stadium about 3 hours before, but that puts you at 4:30. So what exactly are you going to do? But not a huge superstitious guy. There's if this has to be done, but I've been known to maybe cut some grass too, but it's always been a car detail thing for me. And from there, it's really just routine. It's whatever fills the time there. But I'll take a walk, those type of things, put the headphones in, and then not much of a napper, Teresa. So I'd say I'm up. The one thing that's going to be constant is the cleaning of the car. And then, of course, capped off, I'd like most of the time we like to end it with the victory. And then you drive home feeling pretty good about it. And then I'm always been a person that would rewatch the game, even if it was at 2 a.m. I'd rewatch it as a player and as a coach. So there you have it, Teresa. That's from the wake up till going to bed.
That's great. Drive home from a victory in a clean car, perfectly clean, detailed car. That's a great one. I think part of Teresa's question too is, and this goes for players and for coaches, it seems to me, is that on game day the hay is in the barn. They say, like, I was never watching any more film on game day. Like, I was done, man. Your studying was done. Right. If on a road game, I was going over our offensive call sheet a little bit in the hotel, but the hay's in the barn. It's literally about passing time. I love that. Detailing the car, cutting the grass. That's good stuff.
That's me.
My last couple of years, when I was young, I was at the stadium. I was hot tubs or whatever. And then I realized that's dumb. As I got older, I was like, I literally wanted to walk in the stadium, put on my helmet, and walk out and coin toss. And I felt I couldn't stand. I had to go on the field an hour and a half before the game started because I had to hold for the kickers, and then wide receiver, and then I was like, I had already done a whole practice before the national anthem. It drove me nuts. By the end of my time, I was rolling into the stadium last second just because I wanted it to be like any other day in the office, any other practice, whatever. So funny stuff. And I'm sure there's guys on the other end of the spectrum, Coach. Right? There's guys who are, oh my heavens.
Yeah. Oh no. There's people that have their routine, and I know that there's one position group in particular that likes to get there. I don't know. They might as well sleep there. That's the old line. They like to get there at whatever time. But I agree with you. I think as time goes on, you kind of understand what actually will affect the game, and I think as they say, you get a little bit smarter along the journey, whatever that looks like to an individual. But I'm with you. I think the one thing you don't prepare for is you don't come to practice and put on your headphones for an hour before you go out. The routine changes so much, and all of a sudden there's a warm-up, and now the warm-up's completely different than you do every day at practice. And we're used to a 12-minute stretch, and now all of a sudden you've got an hour and something. I'm with you. I think if you just can stay focused and keep it as close to the same as possible, while taking advantage of not having to hurry and maybe relax, I do think it's important for players to get into a groove, and whatever it looks like for them. Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. If it's right for you, it's right. There's no.
That's right.
You just gotta do what you gotta do when it comes to game day. Teresa, thanks. That's a good one. And fans, if you have a question for Coach O, you can email gameday@ticats.ca, and we could ask your question to Coach next week. We'll pick one a week going forward for the rest of the series this year. And again, you can send that question for Coach O to gameday@ticats.ca. Okay, Coach, a couple more here, and we're gonna get ready to get into game day for tomorrow. So. One of the storylines that's been progressing here is the difference between your first half and second halves, and it's been a floating figure. I mean, you've said yourself, right? It's hard to pin down a great reason. Each game may be different, and for the fans, it's sort of mysterious. What are some tangibles? Say that last week in Toronto, what are you looking for your team to do a little bit better in that third and fourth quarter?
Well, we got to get stops, right? So once the other team's made some adjustments, defensively, we've got to get some stops, or at least have them line up for a field goal. That'd be number one. And then the second of all is we got to take care of our. We can help ourselves by there was two unfortunate things that happened on special teams. We made a poor decision to bring the ball out, which pinned our offense on one. And of course, when you get a punt blocked, when you're lining up for extra points, it's tough. So I think special teams wise, we can do a little bit better job there, obviously. And then offensively, just put the ball in the end zone, right? That's the way to make sure that it doesn't go the other way, that you're always on top or at least even. So it's always a collective thing. It's not the defense is giving up these points because the other team has the ball. And if we keep the ball, then the other team's not going to have the ball, right? It's the defense's job to get off the field to give the offense opportunity. It's the offense's job to keep the ball outside of, a couple of incompletions and a punt. And so it goes hand in hand, and I think it's really nothing more than that. If you look at the other teams that are doing it, that's what's happening. It's what happened when you played, Luke, right? We would kick off, and I think that's why the scores were oftentimes lopsided that year, and we were a pretty good football team, but other teams were equally as talented, but we were able to string together some great situational and continuity football consistently, and the scoreboard revealed that. And so we just need to do a bit better job of that. It's not about play calls. It's about taking care of the football and taking the football away when you have those opportunities. When you have an opportunity for an interception, you got to make it, right? We don't want a knockdown in that situation. When you have a 50-50 ball, it's got to be, as you know, I'm going to call it 80-20. You got to go get it, and when we have an opportunity to block a punt, we got to do it. It's just a collective of things, and it's really that, oddly enough, it's really that simple. You can drill down into the fine fixtures. It's still going to come down to those things.
That's great. Listeners, the Coach O Show is sponsored by Turkstra Lumber. Project coaches at Turkstra Lumber can help with everything from a new front door to designing a new deck or fence. Do it yourself does not mean do it alone. Visit TurkstraLumber.com to learn more. Coach, tomorrow, the second matchup against Toronto at home at Tim Hortons Field, 7:30 kickoff. Very excited to see it. Very excited to see you and your team take the field. All the best with your final night's sleep here, and hope the car is looking as clean as ever by game day tomorrow.
Thanks, Luke. Well, I look forward to next week.
Another episode of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is in the books. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Coach O and Luke are back next week to discuss the latest from the locker room. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.